Hello and welcome to the Week in Nintendo. My name is Brandon Miracle. This is GVG's Nintendo podcast. Nintendo news, Nintendo things, Nintendo thoughts, Nintendo merch, Nintendo Switch, the second one. I'm joined today by Daniel and Steve. How are you guys doing?
Hello. How y'all doing? I'm doing okay. I'm doing tired. I had a whole week of a con last weekend, and I was away from all the fun stuff that you guys were doing, but I'm back now. I'm mostly recovered from running that, but yeah, how you guys? How you doing, Steve?
Oh man, mentally great. Physically not wonderful. I had a tooth pulled, which is why I haven't been on the channel much. And the recovery has been bad. I don't love the dentist, and I love them even less now. So it's been hurty, but today's like the first day that I feel like coherent and able to speak because I no longer need pain medication.
We love not needing pain medication. I'm glad you're doing better. I'll tell you, being on the other side of those Discord chats, you were somewhere. It wasn't here.
I existed in a different plane for a little bit.
But now you have returned to the plane that is Nintendo Switch 2. We are less than a month away from launch. That feels crazy to say. This generation has been long, and it's coming to an end very, very soon.
Yeah, it's a weird time because, you know, I think back and we talked about this in a previous episode, Brandon, but how the launch of Nintendo consoles in particular kind of defines an era of one's life, you know, like between Wii and Wii U, I became a dad. Like I had a kid, and then the Wii U era was me raising my first baby, you know, and by the time Switch 1 came out, I had, you know, a toddler that could like talk and you know was very coherent, but then I had a second baby. And what really struck me as being wild this time around was that by the time Switch 3, presumably, like if you assume the same length of time between 2 and whatever Nintendo does after Switch 2, right? The Switch 2 successor, my kids will probably be grown-ups. Like they will be adults by the time Nintendo releases like a full-on next generation after this one. So in the time since the last episode, I decided, because, you know, I did kind of the shell game with pre-orders, trying to get ones at different places. And I was like, this might be my last chance to do a Nintendo console launch while my children are children. And so I was like, I want to do this with them now. Like I want them to come with me and pick up consoles too. So we're going to be as a little family group picking up Switch 2s on the 5th if I can make it happen. But that's scary. Like I can't imagine a world in which my little 11-year-old and 8-year-old are adults, but it's highly likely at least one of them will be by the time we do this again.
Ella is currently closer to 2 than she isn't. And I have trouble processing that information. But yeah, like your Wii to Wii U era and so on and so forth, that's my current position. And it's super weird, dude. Like there are going to be Switch 2 games I play with my daughter at some point. And that's weird. That's so weird.
Yeah, I had for some reason I was going through old photos the other day, and I found it doesn't feel that long ago, but there's at one point in time before GVG existed, I was invited out to California to play Luigi's Mansion 3, you know, at a pre-release event, like a Halloween themed pre-release event. It was very cool. And Nintendo did something unusual at the last moment, like the night before I was supposed to get on a plane and go to California to play. They invited my kids, and they were like, hey, you know, we know you have kids. If you want to bring your kids, totally cool. And I was like, I've never had that chance. So of course I'm going to do it. So I opted not to get on my flight because I could not afford a literal last minute pair of tickets to California. And I just threw my kids in the car and we drove to the event. And I got frantic calls from like my Nintendo PR rep, and they were like, dude, we heard you didn't get on the plane. What's going on? And I was like, hey, I'm so sorry. I meant to tell you, but I just kind of last minute decided, since you invited my kids, that we're all coming, and I couldn't afford the tickets, so I just decided to drive. And they were like, are you kidding? And I was like, no, we're in the car. We'll be there. And they're like, that's so cool. And so they were super nice. They invited my kids out, but I had these photos of them, like, you know, dressed up in like matching like Yoshi shirts and stuff like that for the event. And I realized, it hit me that they were 3 and 6 when that happened. And I'm like, that's half a lifetime ago for each of them. And I was just like, that's nuts. Like, I can barely handle the fact that that's true. You know, and thinking back to, you know, it's just like, this generation has been so long that I can't really, it's hard to fathom that we're at the end of it finally.
Yeah, the generations are so weirdly like spaced out for me. Like for me, I feel like I remember my high school era with the Wii, my college era with the Wii U. Post college has been pretty much Switch, and it's just weird to have the whole time frame of like halfway through the Switch life cycle is when I met all of you guys. And the first half of that Switch life cycle, which is me playing Switch, listening to y'all, doing your stuff, doing your things, wishing one day I could do something like that as well, because I really enjoy the stuff that y'all do. I think I had the stuff to do it back then, but you all helped me to really realize that. And it's a different feeling to like be on the cusp of an actual new generation with you guys. It's a completely different feeling than how I felt at the cusp of the Switch 1 era. So yeah, I don't know. It's a weird feeling to go from there to here. And I'm just like trying to fathom things that are happening around me at the same time. I don't have kids, but I do have 3 little sisters. And at this point, I remember, yeah, I was playing my Switch for the first time as my little sister was like just a little newborn at that point, my oldest little sister. And now they're like they're going to start going to like in junior high at some point soon. And it's scary, scary to think of that frame of time. Like, you're 1 Switch old, young child. Yeah.
It's bringing it back to like doing stuff here. I've had an interesting experience in the last month. Let me preface this. When I was in college, I was in, you know, digital media communications. That was the track that I was doing. And one of the classes I had to take was an interviewing course. And one of my assignments was to interview people in my field, the field I was interested in working in, and putting together like a package for that, right? At the time, I was an avid Game Explain listener. This was well over 10 years ago. So I interviewed Andre and talked about Game Explain, what doing video was like in this space, and made that part of my project. And just this month, a viewer of ours, who I won't name, reached out to me about doing the exact same project. And that blew my damn mind. I was like, 10 years ago, Brandon would have never anticipated doing this kind of stuff, even though that was the business I wanted to be in. I thought I was going to end up doing more, you know, like TV news, which I did for a while, stuff like that. But now I find myself here being asked the same thing by another person who wants to work in this space. And that's insane. I'm still processing it now. It's so weird to see someone else and to see yourself in them. And it's weird to get to attribute Nintendo and content creation to that. I don't know. I just wanted to share that because I've been thinking about it a lot.
Oh man, no, I I totally get that as well. Or I get what you're saying. It's weird to be in a space where it's like I've admired what other people have been doing for so long, and then somebody comes to you and say like, "Man, I look forward to your videos, or I look forward to seeing stuff that you're making, like content wise. Your own flavor, your own way of creating something is like something that somebody looks forward to." And I still can't really wrap my head fully around that because I feel like the stuff that I do is just okay. It's all right. But you also reminded me that I think maybe it was last year. Somebody else in our GVG crew, they work as a teacher and as an instructor, and they wanted me to go and kind of talk to their students about what it's like to be in this space, to do content creation, to make things that are, you know, trying to work the algorithm that's constantly evolving and just all the aspects of that. And we did that for like 4 or 5 different sessions of groups of young adults that kind of came in, and I was like, man, this is a weird feeling right now. Like, I used to be the one listening to others when I was in high school, because we were in a small little academy that dabbled with like everything Adobe, from like illustration, video, graphics, animation, and to be in that space on the other end it's a weird feeling. And it does feel kind of nice too, to think that you have an opinion, or that the experience to kind of like give to others and to pass that along, even if it's only in some small way. It's kind of surreal.
You ever had that experience, Steve?
You know, it's interesting because I've given a number of interviews over the years. I've been doing this, since 2018. So like 1 year into the Switch's life is when I started doing stuff on YouTube. I've been writing about games for a decade. And so I've had the opportunity to talk to like school students at various ages. I've talked to different companies about, you know, social media and content creation, stuff like that. And it always feels weird, because like Daniel said, you're always your own biggest critic, right? Like, you see things in your videos that you hate that no one else notices. Like, you know, oh, I made a funny face here, or, oh, I said this word weird. And granted, YouTube is a particularly harsh place, especially in 2025, to put your face on camera and say anything, because there is always, frankly, some asshole out there who's going to say something mean. And I think but really the bigger lesson is that you are always going to be so much more critical of yourself than any other person would be, right? Like, you see things about yourself because you don't see yourself from the outside very often. You see things that you will nitpick that, you know, I can watch a Brandon video or a Daniel video, and I'm not thinking about the faces you guys make when you talk. I'm not thinking about any of those things. But when it's me, I'm hypercritical. I hold up a magnifying glass to my own imperfections. But it is weird. You never quite. I think it takes a very different kind of person to feel like you're deserving of being held up as an expert in about anything, right? Like, I don't know many people who have that level of confidence to just be like, yeah, I'm great at this and I'm doing a perfect job, no notes. You know, it's just not something that I see happen for very many people. I think people who possess that are built different. But it's been wild to me, like, you know, even going on almost 9 years of doing YouTube specific content creation, I still suffer with what I'd just call imposter syndrome. Like, I still look at myself and I'm like, damn, man, I'm not good at this at all. Like, I can make a video that does almost 1 million views and I'll be like, that was a fluke. I'm bad at this. So yeah, I think that it's something that it's been an interesting journey. It's very interesting to see how people react to that. And when people look to you for that type of thing or call you an expert at something, it's really difficult to, I still struggle with accepting that.
Yeah, this imposter syndrome is something that I certainly struggle with. It's something I've been struggling a lot with recently, just in general. But yeah, you never know the way that other people view you in this space, especially our peers. I mean, I've had some comments from some of our peers in this space that, you know, made me turn my head. Or there are people that watch us that I didn't even know did. And I don't find out until I either meet them in person or, you know, they just mention it one day. That's all to say you don't need other people to validate you. Like, yeah, that's not super healthy, but at the same time, it is a good feeling.
Yeah, it's nice when, you know, you see people like Brandon. We went to the Switch 2 event, and you know, that was a room full of people that I respect immensely, right? people who taught me my own craft to a degree, right? Like Stephen Totillo, who was the editor-in-chief of Kotaku when I was freelancing there, and we're in the same room being given the same opportunity, right? Patrick Klepek, who's done a bunch of amazing work, Ash Parrish, like a bunch of people that I really like and I look up to, who I view as role models in this industry, who, you know, tell me like, oh, I saw this video of yours, it was really good. I mean, Gene Park from the Washington Post was telling us to tell Derek how great his videos are. And that's just a really cool thing to see happen. And it kind of, in a way, it does validate what we do. But it's, you know, it's really just kind of interesting to see that, like, you know, I don't think I'll ever truly feel like I've quote unquote arrived, you know, like I think I'll always feel like I'm just doing the best I can. And maybe that's great and maybe it's not, but I think the key is to just always make what you want to make. And if you're at the end of the day, if you're having fun with it, then I think that's the most important piece.
Yeah. I've learned very early on doing graphic design as well, just to be aware of how much I'm doing. And I've always been really critical of the stuff that I've done. Like I do the stuff that I do in graphic design early on before I met anyone here. And then afterwards, I realize like other people are doing just as good or better. And it's been weird to translate that to video production as well. Because just starting off, I'll look back at the earliest videos I did. I don't want to look at them anymore. I want to just move on. But I think it's always important to just, no matter what kind of creative avenue you're working on, you're doing something, as long as you're putting your heart into it and you know what you're doing at that moment and you're not just trying to force it out. It's something that you enjoy doing and something that you feel confident in doing in that moment. Maybe it's not the best, but you're going to keep on improving from there. And you can only keep on improving as you keep on doing that, working that craft. So maybe you're not at the level that you see your peers at, but you kind of just got to buckle down and just focus on what you feel like your needs or what your basic points of improvement are. And in time, you just kind of improve from there. And yeah, that is for anything, honestly.
I think this is something that John is very good at specifically is I always try to hammer this home to people who ask me for, you know, tips on creation or video editing or anything. Just the just do mentality. Do not worry about the end product. Do not worry about what you don't know. Just do and try. Because if you get past the finish line the first time, the second time you want to do is so much easier. And that's something I still contend with even today. But then I look at John, and John's just like, if he's got a video idea, he just does it. And I'm like, it's as simple as that. It really is. You know, we have a lot of insecurities, right? Everyone does. So saying just do it doesn't sound like a solution, but I promise you it is. Thank you for coming to GVG's TED Talk, by the way.
Oh, yeah. We're doing a Nintendo podcast on.
So yesterday, Nintendo opened pre-orders for Nintendo Switch 2 and the GameCube controller on their website here in North America. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up is I think there's been some confusion about how this works. As far as I know, this is a first come, first serve system. It is in the order that you signed up in that you get access to pre-order the console. I signed up the day it went live. Steve, I think you did too, right?
I did, yeah. I thought for sure I was going to get a pre-order invite. And Daniel, I didn't.
Did you?
I ended up being later, and now I realized I'm not going to probably get one because of I'm further down the line than you guys, so it's not going to probably not going to happen for me.
I haven't verified this myself, but I have heard from people who have gotten invites, and this is the reason I want to bring this up. Is the invite also gives you access to the NSO GameCube controller.
Yeah, this is what wounds me. I heard though, and maybe I'm wrong, that they would open up later in this month for just all NSO members for the controller. I'm not sure if that's accurate or not.
I believe you can't order those until launch day, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But the reason I wanted to bring it up is because you get access to it with the invite, but only if you buy a console too. Apparently, you cannot buy the GameCube controller via the invite link unless you buy a console.
Really?
What?
Really?
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
is.
I thought it was separate.
I
Yeah,
also
me
thought
too.
it was separate, but this is information I've gotten from people who've been invited. I haven't been invited myself, so I can't verify, like I said. But if that's true, that sucks.
Yeah, this is absolute booty. I mean, fortunately, like for Daniel, he lives close enough to the Nintendo store in San Francisco that he'll probably be able to walk in on launch day and just get one. Because if you don't know, at least in New York, and I'm sure it will be true in San Francisco, you could just buy the NSO controllers there. I mean, they check your membership at the register, but as long as you have an active membership, they'll sell you any of the controllers, and they always have them. So I'm betting that's going to be at least how Daniel gets his GameCube controller.
That is very
I'm not that
likely.
lucky.
Very likely how I'm going to probably get my controller. I'm going to be over there midnight and then probably get the Switch 2 elsewhere. I guess it depends how they handle it because the store's opening next week. So, yeah.
I've been considering my approach to this because I want a GameCube controller and I'm going to get one. But I didn't pre-order a Switch for my wife because it was one per household at GameStop. And also, I don't know if I can even afford 2 Switches. However, if things change for me and I get an invite, I might pre-order a console and a GameCube controller.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Boy,
it's an interesting. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just asking, how are we going to afford all this for everyone?
It's pricey.
Patreon.com/GVGaming.
Nice
If
plug.
you heard that, you are probably already there.
Yeah. No, my thought is I don't know that I necessarily need a GameCube controller day one. So I'm happy to wait. Like if Nintendo opens pre-orders for the controller on June 5th or opens orders, I should say, on June 5th, I'm going to be playing Mario Kart World. I'm going to be playing Switch 2 specific games, Cyberpunk, Street Fighter 6, those things. At least if for no other reason, then we're going to have a ton of videos to make that GameCube can at least the controller itself can wait like a day or 2 or 3 days, however long it takes Nintendo to get them out. My bigger fear is that the minute they open them up, they're going to sell out because the GameCube is still one of Nintendo's most beloved controllers of all time. And so I think it's not going to be, I mean, we saw the N64 controller, arguably their worst one ever, sell out a bunch of times. I think GameCube is going to be hard to keep in stock.
There's multiple layers to this too. Like you have an entire competitive scene of Smash who are eyeing this controller as a potential option for them. And it probably won't work on like, GameCube hardware, but, people who play Ultimate are probably interested in getting the controller. That's why I want it. I wouldn't even probably use it for the other GameCube games unless it was necessary. I just wanted to play Smash Bros.
I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot of people who think like Steve and they're just like, I'm not going to get this when I have to get the Switch 2 itself, a Pro controller, maybe the camera, other accessories. Like I'm hoping that this GameCube controller is lower on the list for a lot of people's priorities, unless they're a freak like I am who wants to get it day one at an actual Nintendo World Store. Because there's other options too. Like there's other ways you can play the GameCube games. Heck, the adapter might still work with the Switch 2 so that you can still use the GameCube controller without. Yeah, and so it's kind of somewhat also, if you can use that for the actual NSO application, then you kind of don't need the controller because you already have the hardware to do so.
The only reason, I guess there's a couple of reasons, but the main reason I want one is this last year, and Daniel, you kind of joined me on this seeking out a good wireless GameCube controller option. So far as that both of us have modded our OEM controllers to be wireless. I've also purchased a controller from Retro Fighters. It's not in arm's reach, so I can't grab it. But I've been looking for a good wireless GameCube controller, and the minute Nintendo announced they were making their own, I was like, "That's the one I got to get because it's gonna work."
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, and this sounds like a weirdly dumb draw for me, but it has a game chat button. And I know that seems like a silly reason to want the GameCube, the Nintendo one specifically, but I am a social creature when it comes to my games. And so I spend more time playing games with like a friend just in a voice chat than I do playing any other way. So being able to have that at the tap of a button and just being able to talk to my best friend in Colorado while I play Wind Waker or something, that's huge for me. That's enough of a reason for me to want one. So, I mean, there's that, and just the fact that it's like the ideal wireless GameCube controller. It is Nintendo official. It's GameCube purple, and it's not chunky like the Wavebird. Like I want this thing bad. I'm willing to wait because I know in a world where the console is 500 and the camera's 50 and the games are 80, like I can defer a little bit, and I'd be happy to pay later for some of it. You know, or if Nintendo wants to just send them all for free to all of us, I wouldn't cry. But yeah, I feel like I can wait a couple days for this one.
I love the GameCube controller adapter, but I hate using it because I hate all the wires. I hate that I have to have a Pro Controller or a Joy-Con next to me in order to access the home menu and change controller settings. It's a big pain in the butt. Like, it was so much of a pain in the butt that I started using a Pro Controller to play Smash exclusively. Like, I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. And I miss playing with a GameCube controller. So, you know, this is a very attractive option for me. And we've now heard that Switch 1 controllers cannot wake up the console. And that's annoying. So I want the official one.
That's a huge thing for me. Not being able to wake up the console with a controller is the primary reason I didn't really wade into the third-party controller waters in this generation, because most of them couldn't wake the console up, and I'm like, that's just an inconvenience I'm unwilling to deal with.
It's kind of a deal breaker. Yeah.
I was totally fine with using the GameCube controller at first, just as it is with playing Smash Ultimate, for example. But this thing, when you consider it, it has a wire, of course, but it doesn't have the plus or minus. But I guess this counts as a plus button. It doesn't have the option to like take a screenshot, screen share. You can't go back to the home menu. It works, but in practice, it's kind of an inconvenience. So as I played with the N64 NSO controller, I'm like, wow, this is really nice. I can do all the things, most of the things. Actually, there's some buttons that still aren't functional, but I can do a lot more with this than I could with, like, you know, if I had a other controller. So having that with the GameCube NSO is going to be very valuable to me personally, and I know some of us, like Brandon as well. But yeah, it's just, that's the one thing. I don't know where I'm standing on getting this. This is the one factor I don't know so far, because I don't know how available they are going to be online, in the store. Like, will they fly off shelves in the store? I don't know. It'll probably be fine, but I'm just worried at the moment.
I have my doubts. I saw a post on Bluesky today about somebody saying they've never been able to find the N64 controller in stock, which I don't think is 100% accurate, but it is out of stock now as of the recording of this episode of The Win, and that is their least popular controller. Like, it's just the one nobody likes. I like it, but I know I'm weird. And I feel like GameCube, though, that's the one that everybody universally seems to love. I'm in that camp. It's my favorite Nintendo controller of all time.
I mean, it even informed some of the design choices made with the Switch Pro controller too. So, like, you know, the proof's in the pudding on that one.
Yeah, it's just it's a very unique controller, the likes of which we'll probably never see as a primary controller again, which is a shame, because it does some things that I wish modern controllers would do. Analog triggers are cool, but I actually really love the placement of the face buttons, like the different sizes and tactile feel of every button. Makes it easy to know where you are, which is something that was heavily criticized at
X
the time.
and Y, yell at me. I don't care. It's better.
It is. But that's the thing. I think that people are going to assume, and probably rightfully so, that it's going to be scarce the same way, you know, the Switch 2 itself will be, and that'll drive up demand for it. And it'll probably be a similar situation where we just see it comes in stock, sells out almost immediately, you know, and that pops in and out of stock every few months, and then it'll eventually level out, but it'll be one of those things where it's like there's a stock drop and it's available for like 2 or 3 days, and then it's gone for a month or two. So I'm probably going to try whatever I can to get one, but I'm not holding my breath that it's going to work.
I want to rewind a little bit to talk about the invites again. And another reason that I'm considering trying to pre-order a Switch 2 through Nintendo. I talked about this in a news video yesterday, at the time of recording this, that President Shintaro Furukawa has said that the Switch 2 price might change because of the tariff situation. And he didn't specify whether it would go up or down. It's absolutely going to go up, because going down, you'd have to then make some concessions, I think. And I don't want to have to buy another Switch 2 for more than I bought my first one at.
I agree with you on this. I don't think there's a chance. It's bad PR for Nintendo to lower the price, because then they'd have to admit that they baked in tariff considerations, which they're saying already that they didn't.
Yeah.
Now, and I think that a 10% tariff, as we've seen, because obviously Vietnam is subject to 10%, and that wasn't enough for Nintendo to increase it. So removing it also wouldn't be enough for them to decrease it, right? They're not going to say, oh, it was, it's immaterial to them, right? And to be fair, that would be Nintendo's way of making back what little they're losing with the 10% tariff. So I agree that this has to be something where they're using this language to protect themselves, in the case of a price increase later down the line, right? Because we never know what's going to happen, and it could be 10% today and 100% tomorrow, and Nintendo would then have to increase the cost. There's no way they could avoid it. We've seen it with Sony and Microsoft. I don't see a world in which they go, hey, it's $300 now, depending in 5 years when we have a different person in office, then maybe we get an actual price reduction when there's no longer a threat of tariffs existing.
Yeah, and I don't see us going through another 3DS Ambassador Program situation. Nintendo doesn't want to do that. It would look bad. The people who bought in, even when the 3DS Ambassador Program happened, I wasn't thrilled about it. I was like, the console's now cheaper. I bought it at launch for $250, and I'm getting a bunch of NES games I don't want to play, and then Game Boy Advance games that run worse than their native versions.
It was an interesting situation. I was obviously, boots on the ground, card carrying adult at the time, unfortunately. And I don't remember being super miffed that I paid extra for my 3DS because I loved it. And obviously, not saying that you somehow have to be okay with the price adjustment to be a true 3DS enjoyer, but it did feel like it probably wasn't enough, given the extremely short period between launch and price reduction. I think if you're banking on something like that happening for the Switch 2, you're not following what's going on in the world very closely, because I don't think they're gonna have any drop in price, let alone a meaningful one in the first 6 months or year, or even, Switch didn't drop in price ever. So
still hasn't.
Yeah. I don't think that and I think because of the tariffs, it's still not going to drop in price. I think that the smart money a year ago would have been that Nintendo would reduce the price of the Switch 1 to get more people to buy it while Switch 2 is still scarce in the market. But I don't think that's happening now. I think things are too expensive.
It's a very different situation too, considering when 3DS came out, one of the problems was just there wasn't really the software. The games weren't really there that people wanted to play, be there day one. But you got Switch 2, where there's a lot of titles I think are going to be, within the first month or so, within the next 2 months of it releasing. These are games that they do want to play, games that Nintendo believes are going to be evergreen throughout its life cycle, probably, like Mario Kart World. That remains to be seen. Donkey Kong Bonanza is going to be a big thing, because we haven't really seen a 3D DK game from like this before. And then all the Switch 2 versions of games, third parties, there's a lot to look forward to, more so than there was with the 3DS. And I think that helps to elevate its value that Nintendo sees in it. But yeah, people are still going to buy this to to get into these titles, regardless.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's just, I said it before, I just don't want to pay more than I bought the system for at launch to buy it again, for my wife. Because that feels bad. Like people who are waiting for the PS5 and Xbox Series to go down in price. Well, look what happened to you.
It's gonna go up instead.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
It's just not a good situation, and I don't expect it to get better in the short term. And I don't want my wife to not have a Switch 2. Well, I got a shiny Switch 2, and she's on her little bitty baby Switch 1.
Well, there's some titles that you can buy for Switch 2 that will also be compatible on Switch 1. That's the consolation.
Wow. But it's not the only bad news bears going on with Nintendo right now. This one is a little more frustrating in some ways. Nintendo updated their terms of service, and if you're doing some not so cool stuff on your Switch, they can brick it now.
I'm of real mixed emotions on this one. Because obviously, we got to separate this into two separate lanes, right? There's homebrew, which I don't think Nintendo should be able to mess with you for using. But then there's also piracy. And I don't know that I feel bad for somebody who pirates games on their Switch and the Switch ends up unusable. Like, you're not supposed to do it. People are going to argue. I mean, you see often the whole, if you own nothing, steal everything, or whatever the mantra is, right? But at the same time, like, you're basically asking to get bit if you're taking a Switch that you pirate games on the internet in any way, shape, or form. Like, if you're pirating games and you're playing online, you're going to get you're running that risk. Like, you're playing with fire at that point. And I don't know that I'm going to be really upset if I find out somebody that was stealing games gets their console bricked. However, if you're just doing like harmless homebrew that doesn't involve side loading games that you don't own, I don't think Nintendo has any right to mess with your stuff.
I don't even necessarily think they have a right to mess with your stuff, even if you are pirating. Because there are ways to play their games not even on their platform that involve piracy. And they've been going after those things as well. It's just, chances are that if someone has their Switch bricked who pirated a game, they have probably bought some software. And to then have your console bricked, I don't know, that doesn't feel like the right solution to me.
It's a sticky situation because, I mean, you're not... You are in a way removing access, right? Because they're unable to use that console to play legitimately purchased games. And I guess it would be a question of,
and a legitimately purchased console.
Yes, and a legitimately purchased console. Gosh, it's just it's a weird and difficult thing to really litigate because, one, I don't think this will work on Switch 1. I think this is a Switch 2 security measure. Unless there is something baked into like the new 20.0 OS release that enables Nintendo the ability to like remotely brick a console, right? But I struggle with this only because it's like I've seen other things where software developers, in the past, in the very far past, I have to be clear about that, have written things into games that'll nuke your whole computer if they detect it's a pirated copy, right? Like, this is not a new thing from a software development perspective. Like, there are games out there that would, fill your C drive up with ones and zeros so you couldn't boot the damn thing anymore if you did that. Now, I imagine that there has to be a way to recover a bricked console. It's too soon to say, like, how is Nintendo doing the bricking? Like, I doubt they're doing something that permanently like messes up the hardware. You just have to reflash an OS on it. And most people that do this kind of stuff should have a backup of their firmware that they can restore using one of the many tools they use to get their console into a state where it can play pirated games. But yeah, it's all very weird.
Yeah, I don't quite know how to feel about it because Nintendo, from a business standpoint, they do have to target this kind of thing. But I don't know. I think bricking a console is a lot.
Yeah. I mean, like, as you guys said, it's something that you legitimately bought, and then they're taking measures to take that away from you for them having it be inoperable. But like this, where that gray area is, like, well, what point should they intervene with how you manage the console that you bought with your money? You know, like there's piracy, of course, like if that's a whole other issue to that. And then they've had this problem for a long time now. I mean, we've had homebrew stuff since the Wii's, and on you can get an R4 card for your DS. The 3DS is very easy to mod with everything. But yeah, with Switch
There's now a
One,
card for the Switch.
yeah, it's that easy now, and it's harder for Nintendo to crack down on these things. And they're taking certain measures at a point where like they're just kind of outplaying each other with the next card in their hand of like whether they can actually prevent this or the modders can circumvent it in the other way. So it's like it just feels like an endless game of these people just trying to outdo each other in far as like breaking a console or making it moddable again.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. Like, I don't know that there's a good answer on either side of this, right? Like, piracy is bad. You probably shouldn't be pirating. You've made up your mind before you watch this podcast about where you land on that issue.
You wouldn't steal a car.
Yeah, you wouldn't download a car. I would. But
Download a car.
Where it gets weird though is, like you said, taking away someone's access to their own hardware. I mean, there's got to be more inventive ways to do something to prevent piracy on your console. But the problem is modders and hackers are always going to find a way, right? Whether it takes days, weeks, months, years, eventually they will crack any consumer piece of hardware and make it possible to pirate games on it. But it's also, you can't blame Nintendo for trying to take it to whatever extreme they can to prevent it, because that's the name of the business for them too, right? It's a weird situation though, because if you count piracy, right? Like, how much does piracy really impact? You know, it's like a percentage of people who actually own Switches and pirate games on the Switch, right? The vast majority of people who pirate are going to be people who play on an emulator on a PC, who don't own the console, and where Nintendo has zero control. So I guess I question why they're spending, why they're putting in so much effort to prevent like a fraction of people utilizing their Switch to do this. And I guess it's a deterrent more than anything. And in the end, it's probably a deterrent that won't work.
I mean, they've also covered themselves by making it against their terms of service to file a class action lawsuit against them. That feels a little to me.
Weird.
To be fair, that is a weird thing that a lot of corporations are doing now. I think Disney also had the same thing. Like in Disney Plus, they buried something like that. And then some guy's wife had a heart attack at a Disney restaurant, and they tried to say because they had Disney Plus, they couldn't sue her because they agreed not to sue them in their Disney Plus terms and conditions. I don't think it would hold up. It's just a weird new age lawyer tactic that will probably be proven not to work in the next decade.
Hopefully. Nintendo does get like sued a lot for things that they probably shouldn't be, from a technology standpoint, like Wii Remote patents and some other weird stuff. I can understand trying to mitigate that kind of thing, but hopefully this doesn't prevent the end user, if they are rightfully wrong, from being able to protect themselves.
Yeah, I think in the long run, this will be one of those things that obviously it's weird to think about, but Nintendo is just stacked with people like us, right? Like we talked at the beginning of the show, how it's like, we're just kind of going through stuff and figuring it out. And you think of companies like Nintendo as like, oh, they're this corporate monolith that, everything is calculated. But at the end of the day, it's just a group of people sitting around a table and they're like, yeah, we should probably do this. And someone's like, yeah, okay. And it just turns out most of their decisions are cool, fun ones. And then you have like really crap ones like this one. So I think it's just one of those things where a lawyer was like, hey, you should write this into your terms of service if you're updating them because most people are doing it. And they're like, okay, yeah, sure, fine. But I'm sure something will eventually come of it because, like you said, Nintendo is litigious, but Nintendo is also sued by people a bunch. And so I think that we'll see something where this ends up getting fought in court over the next 10 years because somebody is mad about a Joy-Con or something.
But enough of the doom and gloom for a moment. Let's dip into our mailbag. Well, I guess the question I picked out might be a little doom and gloom. We'll see.
Well, oh no.
We have a question from Kirito. How do you guys plan to balance purchasing physical Switch 2 game key cards against not getting the games at all? There's a lot of games I'm interested in which are digital key cards, but I don't necessarily want to support the practice. I'm probably not the best person to answer this because I haven't bought a physical game in I don't know how long. I just don't anymore. I'm the reason it's going bad. You can blame me. I'm so sorry.
God damn it, Brandon.
How dare you? So go ahead.
There was
Daniel.
a reason
I think
for that. Like, and I'll get on this tangent very quickly and get off my high horse in a second. The whole virtual game card thing and Nintendo changing the way like the game like validates your license and whatnot specifically burned me in a way that I'm still upset about because it allowed me and my wife to play our games simultaneously. This was an endorsed feature by Nintendo. There were instructions on how to do it on their website. So I didn't have to buy Splatoon 3 twice. I didn't have to buy, Mario Kart twice. We could play them at the same time online with one digital license, and you can't do that anymore. And I'm mad. That was the main reason I bought digital. My tangent's over. Go ahead, Daniel.
Well, I'm somebody who will buy physical whenever I have the ability to. Xenoblade Chronicles X being the most recent one. I am somebody who just kind of enjoys I can't get away from being physical, honestly. I've been doing that for most games. Some games I do digitally if I know it's a game specifically that I'm going to be swapping in and out a lot. Smash Brothers being one. Mario Kart. I should have got Mario Kart digitally, but it's been physical because of how I didn't expect I'd be playing it this long, needing to switch it in and out so many times to the point where I felt like I lost it sometimes because someone's like, "You want to play Mario Kart 8 Deluxe?" I'm like, "Oh, freaking fine, I'll get it out again and find it again." It should have been digital in the first place. But that aside, like, yeah, the digital key card thing has been a plague on me ever since I've been doing it for like PS5 games and some PS4 games, I believe, as well. Like, it's just a key that unlocks the ability to download it and put it onto your system. It's the same concept essentially, except now it's a little cartridge instead. That sucks. I don't want to be forced into this. There's multiple reasons why I wouldn't want to have this. One of the reasons is because it saves a lot of space. Like this still isn't a small game. Most of it is inside the cartridge itself, and I can save a lot of that memory for other things, that other digital download digital only games that are on the Wii eShop, for example. But now we're not really, that option is going to be a lot more stunted, limited with the Switch 2 because there's some games that just that option is not available. Even though there are some game cards that are a lot bigger than the game that's going into them, like Bravely Default, for example. Like, why is that a game key card, for example? I'm still upset about that one in particular, but that's part of my spiel. What were you going to say, Steve?
So I'm glad that I went last because I think I fall between you and Brandon on the spectrum here. I buy a lot of games digitally, but I also buy a good amount physically. Like I have a couple hundred physical Switch games, but I have like 500 digital Switch games. And for me, I used to do what Brandon did because there was a point in time, and it all loops back to the beginning of the show, where it was just me and my older daughter, Avery, who played Switches in my household. And so I would do the digital trick with her. But as life would have it, my younger daughter got older and she also wanted a Switch. And then I couldn't do that anymore because I couldn't be like, older daughter gets to play my Switch games and younger daughter doesn't. So I started buying games that I knew the whole family would want physically so that they could just swap the card. And I had to give up the ability to play the same game in two places at once years ago. So for me, I didn't see that as like a net negative. If anything, the virtual game cards I kind of saw as a blessing because now I could take those digital games, those 500 games I have, and let either kid borrow them with, without having to then buy a physical copy for them to share. Where I land on key cards is that I look at them fundamentally as an improvement over over a much worse thing, which is the code in a box, right? Like code in a box doesn't have a reason to exist. I hate that they still exist. Civ 7 is doing it. But if I compare it to the previous alternative of just a slip of paper in a Switch case, I'm like, this is much better because I can still loan out this key card to someone else and be like, hey, you can borrow that. Go ahead, download it. Yeah, I know it's weird, but just that's how you can play that game. Whereas, if I got the code in a box, it's just tied to my account forever. And then I have to add someone to my family group if I want to loan them that game, which is not really fun. So I view it as an improvement. I don't think it's as good as a physical game, right? But I also think it's not as bad as what it seems to be intended to replace. So I'm not super negative on game key cards. I mean, given the option, depending on the game, I may just go to buy it digitally rather like Street Fighter 6. I'm not going to buy a game key card for Street Fighter 6 because I'm the only one that's going to play it. My kids aren't going to suddenly want to duke it out on their Switches. But I don't see it as a net negative because I think that these are games that otherwise would have just been eShop releases or code in a box releases. And I loathe codes in a box. So if I have to choose, if Capcom said to me, we'd either put Street Fighter 6 on a physical card or the key card, obviously I'd want the physical card. But if they said the options they were weighing was code in a box or the game key card, I'd take the game key card every time.
I mean, I think that's a fair assessment, being able to just take the card out of your Switch and then put it in another one, and the license is tied to the card and not your console. That technically is a net improvement. So, like, I get it from that perspective. I guess also if this is cheaper for developers, and they, if they're struggling for cash, we know how bad the industry is right now. I can understand the option. I imagine those Switch 2 carts are probably expensive because they're fast memory and there's a lot of storage space on them. I can see it from a cost saving measure perspective. And when it comes to the big boys, like I kind of like side eye that. But when it comes to like indie devs, I'm like, yeah, game key card makes total sense. You need to save money, but you want an offer a physical option, and you don't want to talk to limited run games for the various reasons you probably shouldn't. I think that makes sense. But, I do think the reason this is a problem at all is because we do not know what happens to our digital games when these storefronts shut down. Like, when it comes to Wii Shop, you can't buy games, but you can still download them even today, right? I'm pretty sure you can.
Yeah, you can. I did it last year.
As long as that ability to still download your digital content never goes away, I don't have a problem with it. It's when suddenly my 300 game library of Switch games disappears out from under me. That's when I have an issue. And I do worry about that. Do I think Nintendo is going to prevent me from being able to download those games? No, not really. They've kept some of their weirdest services in Japan live for way longer than made sense to. Like their Nintendo Power kiosk system. That lasted well into the 2000s for NES and Famicom games,
I mean, and it's worth noting that we just talked about the Wii Shop and this is crazy. We're talking about a shop that's 20 years old almost. Yeah. That's terrifying and I hate it. But, I pulled up my photo and I posted on Bluesky from Wii launch day and I was like, that was 19 years ago. Oh my God.
I was shocked because as I mentioned, I downloaded Wave Race 64 for a video on the the Wii Shop, and I was like, I was amazed that it could still be downloaded at that point. I was like, I didn't even realize at that point that you could still do such a thing. But yeah, those services are still available if you have previously purchased them.
I'm a lot more confident in Nintendo specifically in this moment because we're now on the Nintendo account system. This is the second console in a row that we're using this now unified system, and they've been very forward that this is one of the reasons why. Being able to, save those purchases to the account itself. I look at something like Steam, and Steam's been around for even longer than the Wii Shop channel. And I look at those games in my library and I'm like, do these games one day disappear? Because this is PC gaming. That's what Steam is. You don't buy physical PC games anymore. Where's that crowd? Why aren't they angry?
I think it's been normalized on PC for a while now. And because there is kind of a monolith in that industry, people don't ever consider the idea that Steam games will go away. Steam has also, got a long proven track record where with Nintendo, it's specifically that the eShop has changed so much, right? Like if you just broadly speaking, call it the eShop, right? Like everything they've ever done digital storefront wise. The Wii to the Wii U was not exactly a smooth transition. Nintendo has resold us the same games multiple times in their history as a digital storefront. The Switch to Switch 2 is really the first time we're seeing the same storefront carry forward. And I think that's why people are a little more hesitant to embrace like the idea that Nintendo's going to let us have continued access to these games.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people surprised that NSO was going to move forward on a Switch 2. I was a little surprised to see the concern, but, thinking back to like Wii to Wii U, I get it because we've been through this before. But also, you didn't buy those games. They're on NSO as part of your subscription, which is a whole other can of worms. But I'll be crucified for this, but like I vastly prefer NSO to Virtual Console. I have since day one.
I will crucify you for that statement.
It's convenient. It's all just there, but if one day it could just all go away.
It sure can. For me with Virtual Console, though, that was back before I was an adult with a wallet. I was a kid with no money. So like, am I going to buy an old game for $20 or am I going to buy the new whatever Nintendo game for $60 or $50? And usually it was save up for the big game. So I'm a little biased in that sense, but yeah, this is a complicated topic. I want digital storefronts to deliver solutions for long-term preservation, and I want them to be transparent about it today. This is not something I want to find out in 20 years when the eShop's getting ready to shut down for its inevitable replacement. I want to know now. Like, I think you would quell a lot of concerns with that alone.
I think what will eventually have to happen is that it would be a matter of law. Like we have to have a law passed in the US, frankly, everywhere, indicating that companies are not allowed to revoke access to owned digital items, right? Like if you buy something, then they either need to provide you with unlimited access to it, for a reasonable human lifespan's worth of time, or refund you at the point that they close it, right? If they revoke it, they need to give you your money back. And I think that that's something that'll have to happen through Congress, unfortunately, because everyone knows Congress is so good at doing what we want them to do.
Yay.
Whoa.
So, yeah, I hope we can come to some kind of solution here in the near future. I don't anticipate it, but like we shouldn't stop talking about it. We need to keep up the conversation in order to get to a solution.
Yeah.
But thank you for your questions, y'all. We're running short on time here. But Steve, can you tell people how they can submit their questions?
Absolutely. If you would like to support what we're doing here at GVG and specifically the Week in Nintendo, you can head over to patreon.com/GVGaming to find out how you can get involved. For as little as $5 a month, you get access to our Winner's Circle, which gets you each and every episode of the Week in Nintendo a day early and lets you submit questions to our mailbag.
And before we go, I have some wise words of wisdom that someone very dear to me told me at a very young age. And that's to never forget to put on pants. We'll see you next week. Keep the games good and the vibes greater. Bye now.
Bye.
Till we meet again.
It was John in a dream.